In this video lecture, we'll talk briefly about some general strategies and a checklist for testing new user-written classes. Okay, let's get started. When you're testing some new component class that you've written, there are two key ideas to keep in mind. First, if you create some capability, then make sure you test that capability at least once. And second, this is much easier done if you get in the habit of writing your unit test code as you develop your class code. There are two distinct advantages to this approach. First, it shows you right away whether what you added actually works. If it does, great. But if it doesn't, you'll know right away what you need to fix, and you can do so immediately. And second, it makes it simpler and faster over the long haul to develop your code, because you're adopting a build a little, test a little strategy of making incremental changes, as we saw during the process of building up our person class from scratch. The general strategy for testing a class is pretty simple. You want to instantiate some new objects with your constructors, then display their starting states, make some changes, and redisplay to confirm that the right changes have taken place. You can think of this as a whole bunch of before and after testing. Don't simply become content with your program compiling and executing to completion, and I know this becomes tempting when you're up against a deadline. Instead, take a careful look at your test outputs. Make sure the expected changes have indeed taken place, and make sure that your numerical results are also correct, or at least reasonably so. In other words, make sure that your numbers are going up and down as expected, and are at least in the ballpark of being correct. All of this is greatly aided when you comment your test code well and carefully annotate your test outputs. Make sure you can follow your own testing logic a few weeks from now. Use good and descriptive names for all your objects. Clearly label what all of your output objects represent, which is very easy to do using the overloaded print method. And finally, make sure to use whitespace liberally in both your test code and all your output. Don't cram all your test results into one big continuous blob. Recall that you can insert a blank line in your output by using system.out.println just as shown here. Make your test code and output as easy to follow as possible for your reader. Remember, the easier it is for me to grade, the less time I'm going to spend looking it over in great detail. When you're finished with this lecture video, make sure to look at the code walkthrough for our final version of person.java, which will recap how to go about testing a new Java class. So here's a little more nuts and bolts checklist for testing a new class such as person. For starters, make sure to test all constructor forms by creating at least one object with each one. Then, display each created object's starting state using both toString and print. Make sure that all the default or intended values are correct, and also check that your display methods are showing everything correctly. Then, pick one of the objects and continue testing it. In other words, it's not necessary to test all the methods on all the objects you've created. Test your accessors by individually extracting each of the instance variables and printing it. Test your mutators by altering each of the instance variables and reprinting the object to show that all changes have been made. If you use the prompting mutators for this, you can kill two birds with one stone, because the prompting version uses the standard version internally. If you go one step further and use the update method for this, you can kill three birds with one stone, because the update method uses all the prompting mutators internally. Don't forget to test your mutator data checking by trying to update each checked instance variable with some invalid values. Test your equals method at a minimum with these three checks. An object tested against itself had better return a true. An object tested against some other same type object should probably return a false. And an object tested against an entirely different type of object should definitely return a false. Be sure to test all your derived data accessors, but simply by incorporating all these in the print method, you're already doing this. Finally, be sure to test all your utility methods. Make your class do something and check the before and after states of your object to see that it's taken place properly. To finish up, make sure to look at the code walkthrough for our final version of person.java, where the test code in main will demonstrate examples of all these tests. It might look like a lot of test code now that we're done, but if you get in the habit of adding the tests as you add the capabilities, it's really not that bad at all. Okay, that's it for now on testing our person class or any other user-written class.